The Leftovers is over, but we're just getting started here on post-show recaps. It's The Leftovers Live. I'm Josh Wigler, and I am joined here today by a man who's actually going to be doing this entire podcast from inside a refrigerator. It's going to be very impressive. It's Antonio Mazzaro. Antonio, how is it in there? Can you breathe?
It is. Not only can I breathe, but I think I can survive a nuclear explosion.
If somebody nuked the fridge, you'd be okay.
I think I would be okay. I would just step right out and everything would be fine.
Does that seem plausible to you?
Of course not.
But if
Not-
Steven Spielberg can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, there's, in a world that includes aliens and killer ants and, indestructible Nazis and, boxes that burn people's faces off, are we really going to complain too much about a fridge?
What's more implausible? Surviving a nuclear explosion inside of a refrigerator or 2% of the world's population disappearing without a trace?
I think we both know the answer to that. Actually, I don't know that I know the answer to that. I'd say the 2% disappearing is less plausible because I don't think we're ever going to know the answer to that one. I think if you put somebody in a fridge, maybe they're okay, maybe they're not. This 2% thing, I just don't think we're ever going to solve it.
I don't think so either. I don't know if we'll ever solve the nuking the fridge one either, to be honest with you.
No, and if you want to test it out, buddy, I'm there for you. I can help you somehow.
Okay, well, let's talk about that after the show. I think that maybe we can arrange something.
Yeah, let's do it. There's pizza in the fridge.
Really?
Yeah.
There's always pizza at the Garvey household, by the way.
Yeah, well, he's a good dad.
Kevin Garvey loves to order pizza for Jill.
It's an easy fix.
It's kind of his thing.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about last night's episode of The Leftovers. If you were looking for us last night, well, you should be looking for us on Monday afternoons now. That's going to be our time slot for the rest of the season. For the next, after this one, only 3 episodes to go in The Leftovers Season 1. Surprisingly enough, it really flew by. Antonio is actually my new co-host on The Strain Live. We've done a little bit of a switcheroo here on Post Show Recap. So Antonio and I are going to be covering The Strain right after the episodes on Sunday nights, and we're going to be talking about The Leftovers on Monday afternoons. I think it's basically it's what we have to do in order to keep some schedules intact and be able to keep covering both of these shows through the duration of their first seasons. But also, I think, Antonio, you tell me if I'm wrong. I like actually having a little bit of extra time to chew on this show, but because I think The Leftovers, much in the way, and sorry to bring it up so early in the podcast, we're usually pretty good about this these days, but much of the way of Lost, I feel like there's a lot to chew on with this show. There's a lot of, symbology. There's lots of hidden Easter eggs that you want to kind of think about, and I think that having this as kind of a Monday morning thing, or Monday afternoon, as it were, for me at least, I think my thoughts are a little clearer on the episodes.
Yeah, what you're saying basically is you don't have every cover of National Geographic committed to memory.
I had a late night, let me tell you, looking through the archives.
That's glorious. That sounds like that sounds like a normal Saturday night for me. Just kind of scrolling through the National Geographic archives and seeing what you see there and enjoying yourself. Yeah, no, I completely agree. The other thing is, The Leftovers I like what The Leftovers does, but it depresses. It
depresses so much.
Yeah, it puts you in a place, and it puts you in a mood, and it really is an exercise in that sort of thing. And Sunday nights, I don't know about you guys out there, but I think I'm happier having my Sunday nights end with some vampire killing and some leftovers, but not necessarily just so much depression there. And I like the ability to kind of relax and not force myself through it and take it in at my own pace.
But in the show's defense, obviously there was a lot of stuff that happened on last night's episode that was very depressing, but there were some honest-to-goodness moments of laughter and levity and kindness on last night's episode of The Leftovers called Solace for Tired Feet. And listen, that's been my biggest complaint about this show from basically the jump, that somebody should crack a smile on this show. Somebody should crack a joke. That would be nice. It would be nice to get that. And we're starting to get a little bit of that with Kevin and Nora. So I don't know, Antonio. This is 3 episodes in a row now, at least, that I'm pretty high on The Leftovers. I'm liking what they're doing right now.
So am I. It took me a little bit of time to get through, my head what the kind of show that it would be. But now that I have, and now that I know what I should be focusing on, and now that I feel my attentions are focused in certain ways appropriately and in certain ways inappropriately, I know how to watch The Leftovers. I'm very thankful for those of you that have stuck with us, and I'm very thankful for you, Josh, to talk about the show with. If you like what we're doing, you can subscribe on iTunes. It always helps us. Our leftovers only feed is postshowrecaps.com/leftovers. You can also go to postshowrecaps.com/iTunes for all of our feeds. But yeah, it's really difficult for me. I hope people have stuck with this because it took me a while to learn how to watch The Leftovers. And then now that I have, I really like what they do and how they do it, with some exceptions, which I think we'll talk about.
Tom Garvey, Holy Wayne.
Oh, that Holy Wayne. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I've never been so sad to see another pregnant Asian woman in my life.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was a twist.
Yeah, it was twist, exactly. I think if it's a twist that you don't like, we should replace the I in twist, like twist, or with like a more negative sounding
It was
vowel.
the tworst.
It was the tworst. That's perfect. Tworst is exactly right.
Yeah.
So hashtag tworst on that one. But
yeah.
I think we'll get into that here. But yeah, no, I really do like, now that I've learned how to watch The Leftovers, I really appreciate the show for what it is and what it's doing. And I do appreciate the levity.
So let's get into it. If you're watching this live, Antonio and I always love to hear from you guys as we're doing this live. You can hit us up on Twitter, #PSRecaps, or individually. AC Mazzaro is Antonio. That's 2 Z's, 1 R. I'm at Round Howard, like Ron Howard, but rounder. So lay it on us. If you got questions about The Leftovers, we'll handle them live. If you're listening in the audio archives, not live, totally cool. We love you guys as well. But let's get right into Solace for Tired Feet. And I think we can run through the episode top to bottom. I think that there's a lot to just go through. So let's take it piece by piece, and kick off with. I think we can kick off with a little bit more of the Gladys conspiracy theories, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, we see some stuff with Gladys here at the beginning of the episode. She's got the Shepard Fairley treatment, right?
So they have posters of her all around the city that say "Save Them" on them, and it's posters of Gladys's face, and it says "Save Them" on the posters. And we see Lori and other members of the Guilty Remnant tearing the posters down. So the implication is that that the Guilty Remnant aren't behind these posters, that somebody else in town, I guess maybe, is it Matt?
Yeah, I think we later see in the episode, inside Matt's little operation that has moved from the church to his house, that he's got some loyalists there making the posters, kind of running his operation there. So he's definitely making those posters.
So what do you think is going on here? Are we seeing a little bit of warfare between the Guilty Remnant and Matt's group?
I think so, and I think it makes some sense because Matt is, the representative of the church, and I think Matt would prefer that in these times of despair, when people have nowhere to turn with their grief and their loss and their sorrow, that they turn to the church and that the church could help and provide answers. I think, as we've talked about, Josh, you and I, this is a time when the departure happened that the church was unable to provide answers, and people wanted it and they weren't there. And so as a result, I think people turn to other places like the Guilty Remnant for what to do with their grief and their emotion. And so I don't think Matt likes that. I think Matt wants to try to win some hearts and minds. And I think this is a big way that he's going about it with this campaign. Look what happened to this poor woman. Let's help save the rest of them.
So what do you think, before we find out that Matt and his people are behind the posters, was your head going to the same place as mine, that maybe the Guilty Remnant was putting these posters up and then taking them down as well, just kind of fueling a little bit more of the sympathy campaign behind Gladys, and in the event that they were the ones who killed Gladys in the first place?
Yeah, it's interesting because Nora makes an observation later in the episode where she's like, what's their MO? Like what, you're just going to make you so sad that you go and never talk and smoke? Like, I don't get it. You steal my pictures and that's it. So people are wondering what the Guilty Remnant's kind of MO is. We know they stalk people, sit on them, whatever. So it fits right in with their, kind of weirdness that they might do that. They might try to get some sympathy, take them down. We see the posters later in the episode repurposed, which is a really interesting thing with their writing. So it would be just like them to do that.
This, Justin, in case you are watching us live here on post-show recaps from the postshowrecaps.com page, you can refresh the page, and our chat room is now live. That was not up when we started this thing. It is now up. So if you guys are looking to chat with each other about the show while you're watching Antonio and I yap on like idiots, that is now available to you. So that's a plus.
Yeah, I'm here. So we're ready to rock if you guys want to talk. postshowrecaps.com. Go to the show page for The Leftovers episode 7, and here we are.
So let's talk about the fridge that we mocked at the top of this episode. You know, these crazy kids at Mapleton just keep outdoing themselves in terms of just like the total sadistic ways of passing the time.
Yeah, this one is a little interesting, though, because it has some tie-in to the departure, right?
Yeah, well, I really liked that. At first, I was rolling my eyes. When this scene starts playing out, I'm like, oh, great. The frickin' kids of Mapleton again they're at it again. They're just being horrible. They're just, they're doing their terrible things.
Locking each other in fridges.
Right, yeah, locking each other in fridges. But this one actually has a story that's connected to the departure, which I liked. It's about this kid, Paul Glowski, who went in the fridge on October 14, 2011, and was never seen again because obviously he was departed. He was taken. So I think that's an interesting little layer of mythology to Mapleton. I like little touches like that where we're learning about some of the people who left. It's just a little bit of background color on this show.
Yeah, and I actually thought I can't remember the mantra or whatever Jill is forced to recite before she gets in. One of the lines was, "Now I honor the mystery of his loss by repeating his suffering and embracing the great darkness." And I wondered about the guilty remnant. I thought that line was a little bit resonant with their philosophy, where they kind of hurt their bodies by smoking because they don't care. They're very quiet. They say they worship through that sort of thing. We saw Nora in the last episode repeating suffering by hiring this hooker with a heart of gold, Angel, to shoot her in the chest. And we talked about her repeating that suffering. So it's interesting to see that repeating the suffering is repeated with this kids in the refrigerator thing, because we see people doing this throughout the town as part of the grieving process.
Yeah, it's cool. I thought that was interesting, and of course, Jill Garvey, because she is a Garvey, she's a little bit insane, so she decides that she's going to go for the record. She's going to go for the gold.
Yeah, and I got a question for you. Why are they still hanging out with that Spicoli kid with the blonde hair? There's nothing good about this kid.
I feel like they're hanging out with him so that one of them can just like punch him in the face in a future episode. I feel like that's the only reason this character still exists, because I feel like the audience deserves to see that guy just get hit really hard.
It will be well earned, and I think that will be pretty sweet when it does happen. So you're right. That has to be the only reason why. Because
as for why they're actually hanging out with that guy in real life, they should stop. That guy sucks.
Yeah, I mean, he got choked by Jill, and he was inappropriate, asking her about her family in a weird way, and just took care of his own business. He wanted to roast the baby Jesus. He was really leading that charge. He just is a horrible kid. I don't want to see much more of this kid.
I want to see him get Nikki and Paulo'd.
Yeah, that would be great. A little expose action.
Yeah, I would like to see him get exposed. I'd like to see him get buried alive by Jill and Amy at some point.
Yeah, maybe he'll end up in a dog's grave, something like that.
Well, that seems like a thing that could happen.
I would be pretty good about that. I have another question for you about this scene. The Frost twins.
Yeah.
Why is one of them one of those people who goes to like a urinal and pulls his entire pants down?
Yeah, he's a pull-down pants peer.
Yeah, that's no good, man. Those are the kids you pick on, right? Or when I did that, I got picked on.
Yeah, I used to do that as a kid, and I got picked on as well. I had a friend in college, a roommate in college, who was a famous pull-down pants peer, and he never lived it down once he revealed it. So it's the kind of thing that if you are a pull-down pants peer, that's totally fine if you're more comfortable doing it that way, but probably not in front of people.
I like sitting down. It's a nice little rest.
That's like Larry David. He loves the sit-down pee.
Yeah, it's just a sit-down. The pull-down pants pee, though, I mean, it's a great little character moment. I immediately thought, like, this is an adult male here. Like, what's happening? Why is he still doing this?
All right, for those of you watching live, we would like to know what your thoughts are on pull-down pants pee. If that's something that you do, if it's something you support, if it's something you liked about the Frost twins. It's just a little quirk to the character, I think. We'd love to hear what you guys think about the pull-down pants pee. So, of course, Jill goes in there, and while she's in the fridge, we cut away to, I guess, the aftermath of the fourth date between Kevin and Nora.
Yeah, and this, it seems like it's going pretty well.
It's going well.
It's verdant, it's green outside, it's clearly some time has passed. I think it's spring, and spring has sprung, and you know what happens in spring?
Boning.
I think that's the nature term for it. I learned that in science class. So yeah, I think that's we're seeing very bright lights. They seem very happy, and good for them.
I have to tell you, Antonio, that when when she invites him over to her place, and he says, "Really, right now?" And she says, "Yeah, sure." And he starts to text her. What he says, what does he write? He says, "Hey, honey, about to go have sex with Nora for the first time. A little nervous. Wish
Yeah.
me luck." And
Winky
and a
face.
winky face.
Yeah.
I cracked up. I think that's the first time I really just like very, very loudly laughed out loud at something on The Leftovers. I thought that scene was amazing, and it's evidence of what we were hoping for. That now that Nora and Kevin are kind of crossing paths more, these characters would maybe bring a little bit of light to this show. And absolutely, in their first scene tonight, they totally pulled it off. So I was so happy to see that. It was such a genuine pleasure to see these two people actually happy together.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the is Kevin Garvey crazy and where's he going with his crazy storyline is obviously one we're going to see play out over the final 3 episodes, and one we see a little bit in this episode. And I'm happy that if he's going to go crazy, he has a fairly good companion for that, who may be able to ground him, help him realize what's going on, and bring some levity into his situation. So kudos to Kevin for making a good call there.
Our Philly on Twitter says, if you're going to pull down your pants to pee at a urinal, someone should lock you in a refrigerator for an hour, which seems like a harsh punishment, but that's one vote against pull down pants pee. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how you learn not to do it. You get stuck in a fridge because you did it. So I don't know. I feel like these Frosts, they're not bad looking guys. They're in shape. They're good looking guys.
anything to show off more butts on HBO, I think.
Yeah, and I think that was a big part of it. So
And that's only one of I think 2 butts that we saw tonight.
I think we got 3 butts tonight, my friend. I was on butt patrol.
You're on butt patrol this week?
Yeah, I'm on butt patrol this week.
All right, so not to fast forward too far, but so we get one of the Frost twins' butt. We get Nora's butt. Who's the third butt?
We get Kevin's butt.
We get Kevin's butt as well.
A little Kevin butt, yeah. And I want to correct you on one thing. I'm not just on butt patrol this week. It's a lifelong crusade.
Okay, so this is just a thing you do.
Yeah, this is a thing I do.
I'm getting to know you more, Antonio, so I like these little secrets that come out every now and then.
A little bit here and there, and if somebody wants to stitch together the unfortunate tapestry that is my life through the comments that I've made, good on you.
I would watch that supercut. Let me just say.
You would watch me watching butts. I like it. All right.
Yeah, it might happen.
This is a weird thing because, Kevin sends his text message, and we see then immediately what the actual text message that he sent was, and it's a much different,
it's just, hey, you okay without me tonight?
Well, and the atmosphere is different, too. Instead of being happy-go-lucky joking in the car, Jill, for all her stiff upper lip and Garviness, is in some serious trouble here. She's not handling the fridge too well.
Yeah, she's really not, and she starts to panic once the handle comes off after she's passed the record. And I think right before that happens, that's where we get the pants off peeing. Because in my notes, that's where it comes in chronologically. Is my notes are, hey, you okay without me tonight? Her response is, yup. And then my very next note is, someone is pants off peeing. So I believe that's where it happens. The biggest mystery of the Leftovers thus far is why is the Frost twin pants off peeing? We don't have an answer yet. So the handle comes off the fridge. They can't open it up. Everybody's panicking. I'm wondering what's going to happen. Honestly, part of me is wondering, does Jill Garvey die here, which I think would have been pretty wild if they went in that direction.
Yeah, and I'm glad they didn't.
I'm glad they didn't either, but I was nervous.
Well, we see characters on other shows dying with regularity, but this show we seem to be. We had Gladys, get picked off, unfortunately, but we haven't really.
Maybe that poor guy in the parking lot that Matt just caved his skull in.
Yeah, that was no good. I forgot about that.
May or may not be a fatality.
I forgot about that guy. Matt may have bodies on his record. That's true. And we don't know exactly what's happened with some of the other characters.
And all the dogs.
And all the dogs. The BBA is kind of walking around taking names, but we haven't had a major person go down. And with an HBO show, you always have a little bit of concern about that. And thankfully, this was not a red fridge incident for the viewers of The Leftovers.
Yeah, I was happy, and I was equally happy to see how they get her out of there. And it's Kevin Sr., it's Scott Glenn's character, and what does he say? He says, don't tell your dad. Don't tell your dad you saw me, which immediately is going to be leading to Jill telling her dad that Kevin Sr. is out and about.
Yeah, and I had some questions for you about this, and Bob Ivans in the chat room had a good observation too. Bob said, "Do you think that Jill's experience with the fridge is like her being reborn, or actually what The Departed felt like? She's gasping for breath in a dark, cavernous place, then a bright light, and she's brought back into the world. The Departed, we kind of see the mirror of the opening credits where she reaches out in shock from her current circumstances, etc., etc." And I wondered, with that white flesh, I'm very concerned that there could be some retconning or some, not retconning, but some belief that this whole episode is some sort of psychotic or, weird dream that Jill was having inside the fridge. Did you feel that way in the moment at least, or what did you think about Bob's observations?
Oh no, I mean if this episode was all a dream inside of Jill inside of the fridge, I feel like that would be really nuking the fridge.
Yeah.
That would be one too many shark jumps for me. I would probably stop watching The Leftovers if that was the case.
I hope it doesn't prove that way, and I don't think that it is. I did like the way this episode was directed in general, and in specific, and in general, I like the way the show is directed because there is this hazy kind of dreamlike quality to the way characters kind of float through storylines, and weird things keep happening. Of course, it happens the most with Kevin, but there's always really unusual things that are going down, things that are there and disappearing, people stealing identities, people just kind of randomly happening into each other. So I think at least it is in keeping with that she kind of felt that way. Did you feel that there was? I mean, there's obviously the direct connection to the person who was taken from inside the fridge when the departure occurred. But do you think there was any other, connection between Jill and the departed in that fridge at all?
I think that it was definitely to kind of show what that experience might be like. I think that the departure is so mysterious that we can't really assume anything about what that experience might have been like. But I think that for her, she's kind of feeling that, she's in a very real way, she's about to die. If that thing doesn't open up, if that door does not open, then Jill Garvey leaves us the old-fashioned way. So I think that there's definitely a moment for her when that door bursts open that it's like coming back from the brink of the great beyond. So I thought it was a really good scene. I just didn't read too much into it.
Yeah, I didn't either, but I do like that in your mind the old-fashioned way is dying and trapped in a fridge. A lot of old-fashioned people did die that way, so that's good.
It seems like a common cause of death once upon a time.
Yeah, I think it probably was. I mean, in the summers when it got really hot, people probably crawled in there for a little, cooling factor, and who knows what happened. I don't want to think about how many people we lost to fridges in the past.
So there's so much that we've talked about, and the credits haven't even started rolling yet on the episode. So it's off to a great start. It's off to the races. We've got Kevin Sr. has broken out of prison, or his mental institution, which may as well be prison for the guy. Jill has broken out of a prison of her own, out of that fridge. She's alive and well. We've got Pants Off peeing. We've got Nora and Kevin Jr. who are flirting, and it's going really well. It seems like they're about to get some pants off something going on.
I'm on butt patrol. You're going to say butt.
You're on butt patrol, so we've got one.
No, you're going to say butt. I can hear you're going to say butt. I hear it coming.
There is a butt. Here's the butt. You ready for the butt? The butt is we cut to Tommy Garvey after these credits, and I'm like, great. Ruining the streak. Here we go. And Tommy Garvey can't even boil soup without hurting himself, without just looking like an idiot. Right? He can't even do that right.
Yeah, this is no good. I mean, and he's living in a crack house. What's going on with this guy?
He's in Gary, Indiana, not Louisiana, Paris, France, New York, or Rome.
Yeah. His home sweet home. It absolutely is.
So yeah, he's in Gary, Indiana, and Christine is just monstrously pregnant. She's there. She's getting there. And what do we find out? We find out in the scene when he goes to the pharmacy that she's 8 months pregnant. So 8 months. That gives us a time frame for where we are. I think that puts us in April or May in the episodes, right?
Yep.
So that's interesting. Time's really flying, not just in terms of The Leftovers going really quickly, but in terms of the show itself. Things are really, really moving at a pretty brisk clip.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. The one thing I will point out, and I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on this, we hear a lot early in the series about how things are about to happen. Everybody's about to wake up. All these things are about to happen. And here we are about, almost 9 months later, and what has really happened? I mean, our characters have progressed, and they've experienced things, and they've, found some baby Jesuses, and they've lost their churches, and so forth and so on. But in terms of the grand scheme of where's the conflict in the show coming from, nothing really has happened. So I think if we were to do a season 1 rewatch of The Leftovers and didn't have any Zoloft at our side while we were doing it, which we would need, I think we would recognize that the pace is probably not what we might have initially expected. Things are happening a little more gradually, and that's fine. We're covering massive amounts of time at a time, but it's not something that is progressing very quickly.
Yeah, it's true. But we've got time, and there's still 3 more episodes left, and I wonder where that's going to leave us on the calendar. Are we going to be in the summer? Are we going to be through the summer? Are we going to be back to October 14th? So I'm very interested in seeing where things go with the remaining episodes and how fast things move from here.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, I think they do a pretty good job of filling the time in. I think we see Kevin gradually slipping away, and we see things gradually happening. So I think it's a little more impactful in that regard, because it's something that maybe they're not even necessarily tracking on their own. That's happening overnight, like a change that you would notice when something serious happened. Kevin's routine is that he falls asleep not remembering when he falls asleep, and he wakes up on the floor. This is not something where if this happened to you one time, you might freak out and think what's going on. At this point, it's so normal for Kevin that he doesn't even really think much of it. And so I do think it's very interesting the way the show has handled the passage of time, and we see it in direct form with Christine. What did you catch from what she was mumbling in the tub?
So, I don't know. I was going to ask you. I was hoping that you had some insight on this. She's saying something about nothing can hurt the baby and he's the one, and the only one who blank. I didn't hear what she said. Did you catch what she was saying?
I didn't. She said he's the bridge. Which she definitely said he's the bridge. She said he's the one, he's the only one, he's the bridge. Which is interesting because I believe
I guess he's the bridge to nowhere because he's a she.
You make a very good point. And we know bridges to nowhere usually get people in trouble, so it's hard to see how this is going to work out well for Tommy and Christine, or whether this is in any way going to matter. But at least in the moment, she mumbles some things. I think she also mumbled something about a underwater spider or something. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did hear that, and there's we'll get into it when we get to the National Geographic, but there's a connection there. I did a little bit of reading on the National Geographic issue that comes up. Not a ton, because I don't know how to read, but I had someone read things for me, and it worked out pretty well. So we'll get into discussing some of that stuff when we get closer to the National Geographic part of the episode. But yeah, she's talking about spiders. She's super pregnant. She's not doing well. She looks sick.
Yeah.
Tom goes to the pharmacy to get her some medicine, and the Holy Wayne bat phone starts to ring, and here we have we get my favorite character on the show makes an appearance here.
Yeah, and what the heck is going on with Wayne? He can't remember who Tom is, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, Tom, I called you. That's right." He's kind of like, he looks like he might be naked. I didn't see a butt. I did look. I didn't see a butt.
No butt.
But he's at least naked from the top up. He's some kind of weird hallway, and he's kind of grilling Tommy about how much money is left. And he tells him specifically, he seems to know exactly where Tom is. And he says, yeah, take the $3K and leave it in a mailbox at Harper and 15th across from the chicken place. Like a very specific address. And then he says, what's the quote he says? I think he says, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart."
Wow. So poetic, that Holy Wayne.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I had seen this bandied about on Twitter last night, I think that's a quote from the story, the biblical story of Job. Job, the famous story where...
not Job, the famous magician.
No, not Job, the famous magician. That's Gob Bluth, I think you're talking about.
I don't think you're pronouncing it right.
Gob Bluth, yeah. I think that agree to disagree.
Okay.
But yeah, so no, not Job the famous magician. Job the biblical character who was forced essentially by Satan to suffer to show his faith in God, and he continued to do it. So I don't know if Wayne is trying to suggest that he's being forced to suffer. I don't know why we have this quote in here. We need to, I think at this point, really get it out there that we're watching a Damon Lindelof show.
We are indeed.
And this sort of thing happens on Damon Lindelof shows. You have these delicious but yet still red herrings, and I think this is something that is always interesting to look at the subtext and things like that. But I'm not sure we really need to spend a ton of time talking about the similarities between Wayne and Job. But I do believe that's where that quote is from.
And so you mentioned that, yeah, he definitely knows that Tom is in Gary, Indiana, because he instructs him very specifically of where to leave the $3,000. So I guess you could take two routes on that. One is Holy Wayne is somehow psychic, which I think is, that would fall in line with sort of the supernatural personality that he presents, that he projects with himself, with his ability to hug the pain away. That's something that I think would fall in line with that reading of the character. And then there's also the possibility that maybe they're just like they've been in communication more than we've seen on the show. I tend to believe that because if Wayne was really able to just kind of know everything, then he wouldn't have to ask Tommy if Tommy's been having sex with Christine.
Yeah, in a creepy way too.
In a
I mean,
really
come
creepy
on,
way.
Wayne.
Yeah.
What the heck's going on there? Just a little? Like, why are we asking this? This is not a good question to be asking. I don't think he has the Find My Flip Phone app enabled. So it does seem like Tommy and Christine have probably been posted up in Gary for a little while. They have that crack house they're living in that looks like something straight out of Fight Club. So I know that they probably have been there a while. But Tommy did mention, I think, right in that beginning scene with Christine in the bathtub that Wayne had not called in months. So they may have been kind of posted up how they are for months, just kind of sitting there. I wonder how they spend their time.
I don't know, just making soup, perfecting the art of making soup.
Oh, he wants some
He hasn't figured it out yet. Listen, Tommy's a slow learner.
He really is. I mean, it's tough when you have a tiny little pot. It's condensed. You have to add water. It can be very difficult. And gas stoves are never easy.
It's hard. It's hard. You're absolutely right about that, and I don't want to give him too much guff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, soup is not. It's not exactly something that. Yeah, I mean, who taught Tommy Garvey how to cook? This guy hasn't had a lot of good influence in his life. We know Kevin's just a pizza ordering fool, although he can make a mean meatloaf. So I don't know.
That's true.
We didn't see. Maybe Tommy's been making some meatloaf, but for soup, he's just no good.
Just no good. And he has not had sex with Christine Holy Wayne. How dare you?
Yeah, not even just a little.
Not even just a little. It's not happening. Speaking of not having sex, Kevin and Nora are not going to have sex now because the Guilty Remnant are posted outside of Nora's house, and that's great. That's just great.
Yeah, that's the ultimate, C block or just. I just heard the sad horns from the Price is Right play as soon as they were there. Yeah, I did like Nora though. She obviously has no care for the civil rights movement or any of the history of turning hoses on people.
She's unburdened. She's good. Her spirits are lifted, and she's back to having fun, and she's just spraying people with hoses, and it's great.
Yeah, it was funny. I did notice from the perspective that she was doing that. Did you see that there's a house across the street from Nora that's all boarded up, and it has the number 378 spray painted on it, and the word, what was the word? I think it says where. 378 where. What's up with that?
No, I completely missed that. I didn't even see that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just Lindelof is killing me once again.
Yeah, he's taking you over.
He's taking me over, and I'm heading down the rabbit hole, and I don't know exactly where it ends, but 378 where. I don't want to look up that number or the biblical significance of it. I don't want to know about the history of the word where. I don't want to have to figure that out to understand and enjoy the show. But on some level, I kind of want to.
Don't do it.
I kind of want to.
No, I don't think you should. I don't think you should. Also, of the Guilty Remnant that's there, we got Liv Tyler. Meg, she's fully committed now. She's not speaking, and she's chain smoking, and she's in it.
Yeah, she's on Nora Patrol.
She's on Nora Patrol.
And that's interesting because Nora would seem like the type that would be ripe for the Guilty Remnant kind of action because she suffered so much. But on the other hand, she is, as you point out, unburdened. So the fact that they're there, she said they haven't been there in months, so I don't know exactly what their strategy is, but they're there now, and they immediately get the hose on them.
And she just I love the scene in her kitchen when she and Kevin are imbibing in some Amstel lights and they're talking about the Guilty Remnant, and Nora's like, heck of a strategy, stealing people's photos to get them to join their cause. That's a really nice way to do it. And then she's kind of like, oh no, I just made fun of your wife. I'm so sorry. This is over. We've ruined this.
It's always good when the current makes fun of the ex. I think you always get a little chuckle out of that.
Yeah, it's good. It's healthy too.
Yeah, although I don't think Kevin can use the same tactics.
No, he can. I can't. It's like, at least I'm not your husband who slept with the preschool teacher. Oh, wait, he's gone, as are your children.
Yeah, I disappeared. Ta-da! Yeah, this is not really going to pull any of this off. This is no good. Kevin is very wise not to reciprocate this sort of work here.
But as well as they seem to be working out, as much as it seems like they are having a good time getting to know each other, they both admit they don't know how to speak to each other just yet. So they're figuring it out, and they're gonna try and do it again tomorrow. They're gonna rain check.
Yeah, God forbid that this might actually be some sort of healthy relationship developing here.
Yeah, it's kind of good.
Yeah, I don't know. This is not the show I'm used to watching, so good for these guys.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that they're, I said it before, I'll say it again. I'm just happy to see that they're injecting a little life into the show in this way. It's been so heavy with the grief and so heavy with the bummers that, to get some actual bums on the screen is going to be a good thing for the show. Happy bums, I think, is a good thing for the leftovers.
Happy bums are a good thing for life.
Yeah, I
Like a
think so
singing
for sure.
wino, it's always fun.
So Kevin comes home, and basically Jill just spills the beans. She's like, "Did Grandpa ever hurt anybody? Is that why he got locked up?" And Kevin goes, "Yeah, why?" And she's like, "Oh, because he's not in the hospital anymore." So there you go. Kevin Sr. on the run. Now Kevin Jr. is on the case, and he gets the whole department on it because we find out that Kevin Sr. was locked away for burning down the library. He voluntarily remanded himself to a psychiatric facility. So we're getting a little bit more of a picture of what it was that put Kevin Sr. in the place where we saw him in his first appearance in the mental hospital. Were you interested in some of these revelations? Did you like what we learned about Kevin Sr. tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we know he hears voices from the previous appearance of Kevin Sr. on the show. We know, though, that he's also seemingly a good guy. He has some sort of ongoing relationship with the mayor, which we'll find out immediately that it is no longer ongoing. But we know he was good for Matt and left him some money that he deserved, he said. So we know he's not necessarily a bad guy, but we learned that he apparently has a real problem with libraries. I mean, I haven't seen a problem like this with the library since Parks and Recreation. Like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
So, like, these punk-ass book jockeys, I guess maybe is what he said, as he was, burning the library down. But, yeah, we find out a little bit more. And like I said, in the next scene, we immediately see Kevin go right to the mayor, because Kevin's thinking, oh, maybe he goes right to her. She says, no, I haven't really talked to him for a month. It really just got to be too much. And she says the kind of prophetic thing, he's not coming for me, Kevin. He's coming for you.
Yeah, so that must have been part of it, too. It's just as that relationship was starting to fall apart, ex-Chief Garvey, was probably talking a lot about, yeah, my son's an insane person. He's hearing the voices like me, and I got to go talk to him about that.
Yeah, and that's talk about not knowing how to talk to somebody. I don't think that you can really build a relationship on that. I think there are very poor houses that are built on such swampy foundations. I don't think that's really
basically what she says too, right? Like I was able to tolerate the craziness, but he just couldn't shut the F up.
Yeah, and it's like, what did you expect exactly? I mean, I'm not sure what she signed up for, but unless they had something going on before he went crazy, which is entirely possible, I'll admit, I don't know what she expected, because it seems like he's giving her exactly what he is.
So speaking of going nuts, let's talk about Kevin Jr.'s dream. He goes home after talking with the mayor, basically being told he's going to come to find you, Kevin. Your dad's coming for you. So he goes home. He falls asleep with the police scanner on, I think, and he wakes up. He hears dogs barking. He goes outside, and it's the BBA, our boy, the BBA, and he's got a dog trapped in the mailbox.
He's got one trapped. That's what he says. I mean, how does that even happen, right?
Oh, my God.
What did he put, like a stake in there and then put a step ladder up to the thing and prop it open? I mean, I don't understand how he got a dog trapped in the mailbox. And, we learned pretty quickly how. It's obviously a dream, but man alive, the BBA is a creative dude.
He's a creative dude, and we don't really. I think that this show is really messing with us, man, because now we know the BBA is somebody that other people see and interact with, so he's a real human being. But we quickly find out that this is a dream, but there's enough of a period of time, I think, in this scene where you're thinking maybe this is actually happening. But then once Tommy kind of shows up on the porch, you're like, okay, well, Tommy's not here, and then there's a body in the back of the trunk, and it's Lori's. And I think he wakes up pretty quickly after that you realize, okay, so they're just toying with us at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the Tommy part, I like you, I still kind of thought maybe it was possible, although Tommy just weirdly shut the door. I
He just
thought,
like vaulted his way to the Garvey house.
yeah, I mean, I didn't, it's 2 days later, 3 days later, it's hard to know where these storylines are interacting. So I thought it was possible he popped up because he was so creeped out by what was going on with Wayne. But on the other hand, once we saw Lori in the BBA's truck bed and we saw Kevin not do anything, obviously a dream.
Yeah, pretty clearly a dream at that point. What did you make of the dream? What's going on with these dogs?
Yeah, and I don't really know.
And why is Lori dead in the trunk?
Well, there's an interesting connection there right away, and I believe we had somebody, I think it was our Philly who you mentioned earlier, mentioned that on Twitter, that there's some connective tissue between the dogs and the GR, i.e. that they aren't ours anymore. And I think that there is some connective tissue there. I think that's a good observation. I think that was made pretty clear when instead of seeing dead dogs in the back of the BBA's truck, a truck, by the way, which we know he's given Kevin already,
right.
We see the guilty remnant, and we see them kind of bound and gagged, bagged and tagged like you would see corpses. We see those are the dead things in the BBA's truck and not, dogs. So there's a direct connection that's made right there. And so I do think that there's an interesting parallel there. There are some dogs that aren't theirs that witnessed the events and then felt a certain way about it and have gone nuts and gone feral and completely departed from their normal pet lives. And then there are other dogs who didn't witness it, and not every dog has gone crazy. I don't think that the show has said that. So I do think that there is some link between the animals that we are as people and the animals we see on the show, primarily dogs. And so that in that regard, a dog in a mailbox isn't just a dog in a mailbox. And it's very interesting when Kevin wakes up, one of the first things we see is he has a huge dog bite on his hand.
And a huge dog outside of his house.
Yes, and
that he has rescued.
A giant, menacing black metaphor dog standing outside on his porch.
Right. So now we know that, yes, it was a dream and he wakes up, so we know that none of that was really happening, but we also quickly find out that things happened that he doesn't know about and that we didn't get to see, that there are blackout periods in Kevin Garvey's life where he rescued this dog. He probably got bit by the dog. Amy tells him to put on some Neosporin, apparently tells him some other things that we still don't know about yet because she's pretty clear on the fact that Kevin is not altogether there. She calls him out on it. She challenges him about that later. So interesting stuff happening here with Kevin Garvey. Definitely losing it a little bit.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that Kevin is losing time, that we know that. We saw it in previous episodes, right, with the shirts, where the shirts were missing, and, who cares where they went? I think the underlying point was that Kevin thought they should have been there. They weren't, and probably Kevin did something with them and didn't remember, and so Kevin was losing time. It's really nice to see that directly confirmed here. Whether or not it's the meds, like we talk about later in this episode, or not, I think that is all very interesting. On the other hand, if he's losing time with Amy, I think that's no bueno. I don't want any part of that.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. That is, I think, the constant fear. Certainly on my mind, I think on a lot of people's mind is there somebody in the comments or on Twitter or somewhere mentioned, is this show veering into American Beauty territory?
Yeah, I think that was Rob's chimp that said that in, I think it was on Twitter. I didn't know Rob has a chimp. I hadn't seen that URL or heard it. So that's interesting. But yeah, I think that was, I think that, I think that that's been clear kind of from the jump. That
well, he had a vision of sleeping with her, or he had visions of her in his dreams before. So this is not the first time we're starting to kind of put those pieces possibly together.
Yeah, and she engages with him, verbally on a level that is somewhat inappropriate, a little forward. We know she's a pretty, shall we say, woman of loose morals in some respects, at least with regard to the eye choke. So, I think anything is possible, but I don't like to think of the possibilities.
Especially now that things are going so well between Kevin and Nora. But I feel like, that's drama, bro. They're gonna bring them together so they can rip them apart. I think that if you think that there's a totally happy ending for Kevin and Nora, you're probably watching the wrong show.
Yeah, and I feel the same way, and but despite those better angels shouting me down. I want what's best for these guys. So I have hope, but I really, if Kevin and Nora don't work out, that's fine. I hope they don't work out because Kevin's really off the rails. I really don't want them to not work out because there's some sort of teen American Beauty drama going on here.
So let's get back on the hunt for Kevin Sr. Kevin Jr. finds out that he went to the library, that his dad was seen at the library, because poor Officer Dennis engaged him and just got his ass handed to him. He's got this horrible bloody nose, and Kevin's like, "Why did you do that, Dennis? Why did you go after him?" And Dennis is like, "He always liked me," which I thought was very funny.
Can we talk about Scott Glenn for a second? How old is this guy?
In real life?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think he's in his 70s.
I'm pretty sure he's in his 70s, but that dude is ripped.
Dude, he is in great shape. When he has just the tank top on, yeah, he's 73 years old. When he has just the tank top on, he's cut.
I mean, yeah, where is this guy coming from? This is unreal. Is this CrossFit? Is this the CrossFit I've been hearing about?
I don't know. Is that some sort of exercise program? Because I would not know what that is. I barely know the word exercise.
I mean, I know what it is, so I know to avoid it.
Right, yeah, just stay away. Stay away.
You don't want somebody to invite you to a party and say, "We're doing CrossFit," and you think it's a board game, and you show up and you die.
You'll get caught up in the CrossFit.
Yeah, you don't want it to be caught up in the CrossFit. Yeah,
No.
Absolutely not. No CrossFit. Crossfire's better.
Though.
Yeah, great commercial for Crossfire. We would love that, but CrossFit, no good. I don't know what this guy's doing. I don't know if in the nut house where he's all shacked up, he's just sitting there doing pull-ups and push-ups all day long.
Doing a Sarah Connor, just like getting ready for the robot apocalypse, just training every single day.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like De Niro in Cape Fear, just like, in his cell, just like clap push-ups all day long. Sarah Connor's a good example. Yeah, like I don't know what's happening with this guy. I don't know where he's getting this strength, but
it's all that peanut butter. It's like peanut butter is to Kevin Garvey Sr. as spinach is to Popeye.
Yeah, so he downs a can of peanut butter, a jar of peanut butter, and poor Officer Dennis is just lit up.
No match at all. Dennis just got rocked.
Yeah, and so did the library, by the way. Like a one-man hurricane went through that joint.
Yeah, he is the deer that broke into his own house. He just stampeded all over that library. It's not enough that he tried to burn it down once upon a time. He has now just destroyed it with probably his bare hands because he's a crazy person.
Yeah, he just tore the whole thing limb from limb. It's insane. I mean, I think that I think there's like biblical or like Greek myth about people that rip down libraries with their hands. Like this guy is unreal. And we see Kevin, right? And he's talking about like, well, what happened? And we find out that his dad was using the computer and asked to borrow $200. Like every person I've ever met using a computer in a library.
Yeah, that's usually how it works.
But I mean, what did you think at the moment? Like, what did you think he wanted with $200?
Had no idea. No idea. At that point, I was like, this episode will explain that by the end of the episode.
Yeah, because he said, rather ominously, he said to that the person who didn't speak English, the library employee there, like, I need to get something for my son with this $200. So Kevin's, at that point, probably expecting $200 worth of something crazy.
Well, I mean, it was unconventional what he ends up getting him.
Yeah. And, speaking of weird things with money, the next scene, Tommy, he's supposed to get $3K for Wayne. He just rips apart some pile of money and kind of sizes it up. I'm hoping Wayne didn't have a very specific bill to pay with that $3,000.
I also love how Tommy... Tommy he's a very subtle guy this time.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, right? When he's putting the money under the mailbox?
Yeah, he bolts from his car, runs to the mailbox, slams it underneath, runs back in his car, and doesn't drive away. That's just like the fishiest thing. Forget Holy Wayne's guy possibly stumbling in upon him and seeing what he's doing there. Imagine just like anybody on the street who watched that happen. Everybody's just like, what did that guy just do? I should probably call the cops.
You live in New York, right?
I do live in New York.
I want you to go do this.
No! I'll get arrested immediately.
Hey, listen, I'm a lawyer. I'll help you out.
Yeah, but you're in Kentucky. You can't help me out that fast.
I would love to see a camera set up on people's faces watching somebody just take a mysterious package, place it under a mailbox, and then run away and sit there and wait.
I don't know. If we have any listeners in Gary, Indiana, if you could tell us that this is just like something that happens every day or every other day or even once a week, and this is just okay and it's just commonplace, let us know. Because it seemed really weird to me. And just another instance of why I am not a Tommy Garvey fan. I just don't like this kid.
And another instance why you don't live in Gary, Indiana. Have you ever been to Gary, Indiana?
Only in my heart.
Only in. I got to tell you,
Only when I'm singing from the Music Man.
it is not the idyllic burg that the Music Man would have you believe.
I don't believe that.
Well, I don't want to shatter anything for you, but
Okay.
you can keep on whistling through your teeth like a young Ron Howard, but rounder.
Okay. Well, that's what I do. That's how I
All right.
like it.
I like that's fine. You can go for that. Instead of
So
six trombones, we'll play the big parade.
let's talk. Listen, we could do a whole musical podcast here. We don't need to do that. That was the Throners last week.
No, fair point. Fair point.
That one musical a month on post
We
show.
don't want anybody storming out of here.
No, no, no. So let's talk a little bit about. Let's go back to Mapleton. Let's go back to the Garvey household. Grandpa Garvey is throwing a tantrum out back. He's fighting with the dog. He's in a tug of war with his own shirt. This is where we see that Scott Glenn is just the most jacked human being on the planet. He looks so good. He looks like Old Man Wolverine is what he looks like. It's really amazing. I kind of just expected him to pop the claws at any second. Frankly, that would be really good casting if Hugh Jackman got tired and they wanted to do the Old Man Logan movie. I feel like Scott Glenn's the guy to call. Make that happen, Fox. I am officially petitioning for that. But Wolverine comparisons aside, we find out that Jill does the right thing. She calls her dad. Kevin Sr. doesn't know that yet, and they have a little bit of a conversation where she asks Kevin Sr., "How did you find me in the fridge?" And Kevin Sr., what does he say?
He's like, I just walked out of the back door of where I lived, and and then about 10 minutes later, I came across a fridge.
That's what I believe they call lost logic.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way.
No, I don't think so. He's like, "You don't believe me, do you?" She's like, "No, because that's crazy."
Yeah. Well,
That
what do you
doesn't make
so,
sense.
so I didn't believe him. Obviously, you didn't believe him. Jill didn't believe him. But what do you think happened?
I think it's gonna be one of those things that goes unsolved.
So he was on an outrigger?
I think he was on the outrigger. Yeah, I think
Oh my gosh, you just blew my mind
mystery
with that one.
solved. Mystery solved. Yeah, I think he was on the outrigger. He's certainly a candidate to be on the outrigger. If we're on outrigger patrol, he is now on the list.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's as simple as he did as kind of walk out of the place he was and go sit on the house and find Jill, follow her around. I don't know why he would follow her around. If the house was there, he could have just gone and done what he was coming to do, which is get the money from his secret stash. So I don't know exactly why he was in the woods and why he found her, and we may never know. But I thought that was very interesting.
We also find out a little bit more about what the voices in his head are telling him. She kind of asks, "What are they saying right now?" And he says, "What? That they're observing that she looks like Snow White."
Yeah, I thought that was BS. I don't think that's what they were telling him.
So you think he's just trying to be nice in the moment?
Yeah, but I mean, it is.
Or is that any kind of Lindelof foreshadowing where Jill's story might be going?
That she's going to meet 7 little people and go work in a jewel mine?
Well, she's already met 2 people who pee with their pants down, so if she just finds 5 more of those types of people, maybe she's.
Then it's off to work. Then it's off to work they go.
Yeah, whistle while you pee with your pants down.
So we did. I mean, it's an interesting observation. We had a tweet from Jason Burning on Twitter, who wondered, to you specifically, do you think the voices Old Man Garvey is hearing are the departed?
Well, I think that is going to be. I mean, that's a question that I think the show wants us to ask right now. The fundamental divide with what's going on with the Garveys is it in their head? Are they just losing their minds? Is this, something physiological, biological that's going on with them? Or are they hearing from a higher power? And if so, you would have to imagine it's connected to the departure in some way. Now, whether that's the departed who are speaking to them, or if it's angels or demons or whatever you want to call it, that remains to be seen. But that's certainly the question that the show wants you to be asking. Right now, I'm a little bit more on the side of man of science versus man of faith. I think that just with kind of the promise that the show doesn't seem like it's going to ever explain what the departure is, just based on what the writers have said about the show. I'm trying not to invest too heavily into that possibility. I'm open-minded that could be where they go with it, but I feel like, I don't know, I tend to lean towards these Garveys are just a little bit bonkers, I think.
Yeah, and they can be a little bit bonkers and still be right, and they can be a little bit bonkers and be totally bonkers.
Right.
And it's certainly an interesting thing that we'll discuss as we get further through the episode that really plays out in the diner later. But presuming that he is hearing voices from the departed, if we go down that that lane, it makes you wonder why him, why the Garveys, why were they selected? If indeed they are the ones that are hearing these voices from the departed, why are they the ones being singled out for this work of all the people? Or maybe it's happening to other people in other Mapletons throughout the country, but why them specifically? Were they supposed to be taken and weren't? Were they, somehow connected to something that is there? I don't know, and we'll talk about this as we get there, the significance of the very magazine, if there's anything there. So if he is hearing these voices, I don't understand why it would be him. I think it's far more likely that he was just driven crazy. He was already susceptible to it, apparently, and then the events of that day really set him apart. So that seems to be the most likely explanation. That's the man of science explanation. But if you want to have the man of faith explanation, we have to start looking into why them, and I think that's the first and most important question to ask.
Yeah, and I have no good answer for that.
I don't either.
I don't know why it would be the Garveys and not anyone else, other than that it is happening to other people, and we just don't know those characters yet, maybe.
Yeah, I don't.
Or,
I don't know
frankly,
why
it could be something going on with the Guilty Remnant as well, because we wouldn't know, because those guys don't talk to us. Or Holy Wayne, who we only see in bits and pieces, too. So, there's certainly things on the show that have these higher concept items at play that we just don't know enough about yet. So it's possible. Still 3 weeks to go in season 1. We'll keep an eye on it. I just don't think that we have too much definitive information in either direction just yet.
Yeah, I don't think we do either. And I think, the central mystery of the show, unfortunately, I think for a lot of people, is why did it happen? And those people who didn't understand that mystery is really not going to be answered throughout the course of this series will probably be disappointed, of course. But if the central mystery of the show is Kevin Garvey really crazy, or is he somehow tuned in to something that lets him know about what happened? Then I think it's still an interesting show, because we know something's going on with Kevin, whether it's physiological, psychological, spiritual, whatever it is. We've seen it from the beginning of the first episode almost, all the way through where we are currently, and that's really been one of the central arcs of the show. And so if the fundamental question we should be asking ourselves is he just medicated and going nuts, or is he connected to something bigger? Because clearly something did happen. A lot of people did disappear. I think that's an interesting mystery that the show may be able to answer without giving us the specifics as to why what happened.
So the Kevins reunite. Kevin Jr. gets Kevin Sr. Kevin Sr. handcuffs himself because he's so stubborn that he's got to do it. They wind up in the police car together. Is there anything interesting that happens in the car other than the breakout?
Yeah, not really. The only thing that happens really is right after the breakout when we see the Guilty Remnant, I think.
Right, and they run through the Guilty Remnant, and Kevin Jr. knocks down Patty. Patty not so happy about that.
Yeah, she wasn't.
She was pissed.
Yeah, it was very interesting that she had Lori right there with her. So she's got her crew there.
If we are talking about the people who are a little bit unhinged, people who are a little bit, for lack of a better term, crazy, starting to hear higher powers, hearing voices from higher powers, and we've got the Garveys because there's that family history in there. We also have speculated that maybe Patty's got something going on as well, that there seemed to be some connection between her and Lori. So maybe that's something to watch too, that maybe Patty knows something that we don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible. She clearly has, she knows if she's the local leader of the Guilty Remnant, which we've seen through Tommy's story, is at least, in other cities, then she's tuned into some larger part of the organization, which may or may not have a purpose or reason beyond the very weird surface purpose that we've seen so far in the show. She's going to be the one, the secret keeper of that organization locally, and so she absolutely has that. She's got something going on with someone named Neil that we saw she wrote the name on the leftovers bag
Right.
that she took from the restaurant. We know she had a previous relationship with Lori. We don't really know the details of that yet. So she's tuned into something, and she's a character who, because she doesn't really speak, possesses a lot, and she really does a great job, letting that shine through in just even little moments like this on the episode where she's knocked down. She's this kind of looming presence that exists in the town, and you can't really have an episode and forget that she's there.
So Tommy, we go to Tommy back in Gary, Indiana. Kevin Sr. is gone, so let's go straight to Tommy, and he sees somebody who looks like Tim Riggins from Friday Night Lights picking up the money from underneath the mailbox, and he tracks him down, and he kicks open the door, and he finds out that Irish Tim Riggins, as it turns out, is he has another pregnant Asian woman with him who also is tied to Holy Wayne. So Holy Wayne's been two-timing.
Yeah, he's been two-timing, and he's two-timing. He's got two Tommies. He certainly has a type, it seems like, because
Well, we already had heard about that
and we'd seen it at the pool.
Episode,
yeah,
where the ATF is meeting, and they're talking about, this creepy Holy Wayne guy is a bit of a pedophile with a thing for Asian girls. So we've heard this about Holy Wayne.
Yeah, and this is just no good on any level. I mean, Tommy at this point is basically just a freaking child support representative. He's just doling out cash to pregnant Asian women left and right. I mean, this is not what he signed up for. No,
the mission has started to take a turn for him, and I mean it's been turning the whole way, but this time he's frustrated. This is disappointing that it turns out that there was another mission that was running parallel with him all along, and it makes you wonder: are there more of them in the world, but in Gary, Indiana? Even?
Yeah, why are they both in Gary, Indiana for crying out loud? Yeah, this is no good.
Yeah, so it's bad. So we'll get back to that. Back at the Garvey household, Amy is there, and this is where she kind of calls him out for saying, "You don't remember last night, do you? Do you remember what you said to me after I bandaged up your hand?" And Kevin just classically kind of dodges the question by saying, "We like having you here, Amy. Do you like being here?" Kind of threatening, like push the issue just a little further. Yeah, because you have to be here, which was, I don't know, a little weird. And I think that is a place where you could kind of fuel some of the fires of our Kevin Garvey and Amy sleeping together theories.
Have you ever found that yourself in that situation where a woman says to you, "You don't remember what you said to me last night, did you?"
My wife says that to me sometimes.
Oh boy!
And usually, what I'm saying is the lyrics of Gary, Indiana from The Music Man.
Well, then you can remember it. It's right there. It's in your home sweet. It's your home sweet home.
It's my home sweet home. So Kevin goes out back. He somehow finds the Jif jar with the money in it for Reverend Matt, and the newsletter that implicates the guy who vanished, that caused the car accident that turned Reverend Matt's wife into basically a vegetable. So he now starts to put together that Reverend Matt and his father are somehow connected. And we had a tweet come in from Dave Backer, who wanted to know what our take was on the relationship between Reverend Matt and Kevin's dad. What do you think about that, Antonio? What do you think about the relationship between Kevin's father and Reverend Matt? What do you think is going on with these two?
Well, first of all, I think it's interesting that, the note from Kevin's dad was written on the back of one of Reverend Matt's flyers. And so that, that stash was left after the departure, after Reverend Matt had kind of undergone whatever led him to go on this crusade against the departed. And I think that knowing that Kevin's dad was cogent throughout and was supportive of Reverend Matt throughout, I thought it was at least a little bit similar to the relationship that Kevin has had with Reverend Matt, where Kevin is slowly kind of coming undone, and he's yet been there for Reverend Matt throughout, and has tried to help him, has not, didn't want to really interrogate him as a suspect in the murder of Gladys, but, knew he had to do his job and at least ask. And has kind of been on good terms with Reverend Matt throughout. There's been some really interesting interactions between the two of them. The very first one from the first episode, I believe Reverend Matt says, "You're off the hook. Let your dad know he's off the hook too."
Right.
So we've kind of talked about that on this podcast, whether that off the hook means off the hook for the departure, off the hook for having to really answer for some of the people that were taken or off the hook for something else. It's not 100% clear, but there seems to be a sort of parallel relationship that both Kevins have with Reverend Matt. And so I do think that there's some interesting stuff there. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm really not sure of what's going on with Reverend Matt and Kevin Sr. Obviously, they trust each other in some capacity, and I think it's pretty clear that Matt visits him because once Kevin is locked back up again, he says, "Will you come see me on Sunday?" And he says, "Of course."
Yep.
So I think that they've been seeing each other fairly regularly. I don't know what the history is like between them beforehand. I mean, there's still a little bit of questions for me. The fact that Kevin Garvey and Nora Durst didn't know each other super well until a few months back when Kevin Garvey and Nora Durst's brother, Reverend Matt, seemed to have some history together, seemed to really be connected to each other in some way. So somehow he missed the Nora Durst train somehow. So there's a little bit of fogginess for the social dynamics between all of these people for me. But let's not get too hung up on that right now.
No, I don't want to. I do want to mention there is one thing that we know Reverend Matt also has a connection with Lori Garvey.
That's right.
So I don't know how that all plays in, but I think it's important if we're mapping this out, how Reverend Matt is connected to the Garveys and Lori specifically, and how all that could happen and Kevin not be connected to Nora. I hope we're going to get that story. I think we will. And I do think it's interesting to track that as we go forward. But like you, I don't want to get too hung up on it.
Yeah, it's an interesting mystery that's going on with the social dynamics of Mapleton. I hope we get to the bottom of it before the season's over, but we might not. So Kevin, in a very funny scene, he goes over to Reverend Matt's headquarters, has one of Reverend Matt's flunkies call him up, steals the phone, it basically says, "Reverend Matt, what the hell? Where is my dad? Take him to me. I want to see him right now." He's like, "We need 90 minutes. Meet us here in 90 minutes." And Kevin just flips out and just throws the phone against the wall. And I think it's Reverend Matt's. It's his wife's caretaker that he stole the phone from, and she just kind of looks at Kevin like, "What the hell, man?
Yeah.
It's my phone."
Yeah.
And Kevin, just classic Kevin Garvey, just does not give a rip, and he just gets in the car and doesn't even apologize. So it's good to see the old Kevin Garvey is still in there somewhere. Grouchy Garvey still exists. So speaking about somebody who is going to be throwing a phone in the not too distant future, is we get Tom Garvey and Irish Tim Riggins. They're trading notes about what's going on with Holy Wayne. We find out that Irish Tim Riggins has hugged it out with Holy Wayne, so Holy Wayne took all of his pain away. And then it just goes ballistic. The lady there, the pregnant lady, just starts firing her pistol at Tommy, and he's lucky to walk away from that with just a shot to the hand, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, really, really, really lucky. And I don't know if she was upset. She got upset, obviously, because she found out about Christine. She asks, like, which girl was it? And he tells her who. And, she's obviously very jealous. And I think that there's some element of she felt special with Wayne, and it's kind of all coming crashing down on her end. I did feel like who you call Irish Tim Riggins. I had poor man's T.J. Miller, Transformers in Silicon Valley's T.J. Miller.
Okay, that works too.
I had poor man's T.J. Miller written in my notes.
I would add poor man's Irish Tim Riggins as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a debt that needs to be paid there. Did you think that they were mocking Holy Wayne? They're kind of laughing it off. They're like, "Oh yeah, he hugged us."
Tommy and Tim Riggins?
Yeah.
I got the sense that Tim Riggins was still really into Holy Wayne. I mean, obviously, I think Tommy is on the edge, if not over the fence, in terms of not buying into the Holy Wayne game anymore. But I kind of thought with Irish Tim Riggins that he's still into it.
Yeah, they were laughing, and I couldn't tell if they were laughing because of the coke, or because he was unburdened, or because they are not good actors, or they were people, or what. I don't know, and I'm not saying they aren't good actors. I just don't know what they were trying to pull off in that scene. If they really had, we know Tommy's losing the faith. Like you said, Irish Tim Riggins, I don't know if this was his lose the faith moment or what, but it clearly was for the other girl that was there, because, yeah, she's just shooting up the joint.
Yeah, she's shooting up the joint, and Tommy takes one to the hand, and then he leaves. And what does she say? She says the same thing. She says, like, he's the one, he's the one.
Yeah, he was supposed to be the bridge. He was the one. Yeah. So, Wayne has clearly said the same things to multiple people who he's put in this situation. And I mean, if you're Wayne, I don't know. Maybe you have some delusional belief in some prophecy that somebody you give birth to is going to be a bridge to. And when you say a bridge, I mean, I'm guessing the bridge between what? The bridge between the departed and the people that are still alive, or like you said, a bridge to nowhere.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the questions that the show is asking. So far for me, this storyline is a bridge to nowhere. So hopefully it's going to heat up in a way that really gets exciting as we go along. Because I think the rest of the show is really good right now, but this one is still just not doing it for me. Well, let's get to the meat of the rest of the episode. I think that this coming scene in the diner is really good. And this is where Papa Garvey shows up. He still has his handcuffs on. Kevin kind of begrudgingly takes them off, and Papa Garvey starts getting into his spiel, basically saying, I wanted to keep you out of this. I tried to change their minds, but they wouldn't stop. They would never stop. And he hands him a present, and it's a very specific present. He was instructed very specifically that it's got to be a National Geographic May 1972 edition. What have you found out about this, looking into this, Antonio? Tell us some of the findings that you've had in looking into the National Geographic issue that's presented on the show.
Well, and I know you did some research too, so please check me if I'm wrong on anything here, and let's kind of unpack it just a little bit. There are some major cover stories listed on the cover. First of all, we see some sort of dancing bear, and the cover story is about Yellowstone's 100th birthday. I don't know about you, but I don't really see any connection between a dancing bear and Yellowstone's 100th birthday in the show.
No, except that I guess technically that bear probably pees with his pants off because he doesn't wear pants. But that's the only thing I can think of.
And if the bear were backwards, I would be on Bear Butt Patrol and I would see a bear butt. But other than that, yeah, I don't see any connections there. There is a Dharma van in the background, but we won't get into that.
That's right, unpainted for now.
Yes. There is living in a Japanese village. Anything there?
Nothing comes to mind.
Then there are 3 other stories, all of which I think have some loose tie into the show, and we can unpack a little bit.
All right.
The first one says the spider that lives underwater.
And that seems to call back to what Christine is saying at one point. She says something about Holy Wayne being like a spider or something.
Yeah, she's kind of talking about Wayne. She's in the tub. We don't know specifically, that Wayne is a spider that lives underwater, but this spider that lives underwater, I think it's called the bell spider. I really don't want to do too much research. I don't like spiders, but I believe this spider breathes an air bubble and lives in the bubble its whole life. And essentially knows, I think, when the bubble's running out, when it's about to end, and so that could really be tracked pretty closely to Wayne. Whether that has any other significance other than that, I mean, Christine's made it pretty clear that there's a connection there. So I don't know, exactly why that matters, but I think that at least that might be some connection to the series and to the text of the series.
What else is on there?
We have Cairo, troubled capital of the Arab world. I will point out that the next episode of The Leftovers is called Cairo.
So maybe we are going to open up that National Geographic and read that story for about a half hour of the episode?
That would be, but there would be depressing music playing the entire time.
Yeah, just really harsh violins going the
whole
way.
Kevin would order pizza, and he would see the BBA, and then he would wake up on the floor and throw a few Frost jokes in there and maybe some boiling over soup, and we'd have the episode. No, there is a Cairo in New York, I believe.
There's a Cairo, New York?
Yeah.
News to me.
So I don't know if this is anywhere close to Mapleton, New York. I don't know if we're going to end up in Cairo in the next episode. I don't know, how this all plays out. But I also noticed on Reddit that if in Kevin's dream, when he is listening to the police scanner and he's sort of waking up, you can actually hear someone say the word Cairo on the police scanner.
Okay.
All right.
So he's hearing things.
Don't know the significance of any of this, but there we are. So there's the Cairo connection. Did you get anything more on that one?
No, you're illuminating me at this point.
Okay. So the final thing is, have excavations on the island of Thera solved the riddle of the Minoans?
Is this where the polar bears appear?
This this is where the polar bears appear. They excavate the island. They find a polar bear skeleton. Wonder what it was doing, off of the coast of Greece, and how this could possibly happen. And somebody asks, "Where are we?" No. The story of the Minoans, basically, it's an ancient civilization. This was a real civilization, and we don't really know why it didn't continue to be a civilization on the island of Crete. But something happened to the Minoans, and they disappeared.
Well, I just am scratching my head wondering how that could possibly be connected to the themes of The Leftovers.
Well, there was a deer that disappeared in the first episode. I don't know if I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, where did that thing go?
Yeah, it probably went to somewhere in Crete. That's obviously that's a very obvious connection. What any of this has anything to do with Kevin Sr., the voices, anything, I really can't explain it, and I don't know that there's any tie-in at all. There is obviously some good surface connection there with some of the stories that are on the cover. I don't know if they back wrote some of these things in so that they had Christine mention a spider while she was in a bathtub, so that there would be another connection or not. But I don't know about you, but I really don't see anything here that would point to why the departure happened, and I really don't think we should be looking for it.
Yeah, I don't really know. This is something that Antonio and I were talking about a little bit offline before we came on the air here. Is we've been Lindelofed before. This is something that Damon Lindelof likes to do. Is he likes to drop these types of Easter eggs into his shows, and I don't necessarily mean that as an insult. Certainly, we would not have a dedicated weekly podcast to Lost 10 years after it premiered if we weren't big fans of what Damon Lindelof does. So I don't mean it as an insult, but we went through 6 years of that show, and a lot of those things, they added texture to the show. Things like Watership Down being, the book that Sawyer is reading in the first season of Lost doesn't really end up pointing you towards anything too specific on the grand scheme of the show. So it's for flavor, it's for texture. We went through an entire show where those things didn't really add up to too much, and I feel like it's probably going to be similar here. And maybe we are going to be proven gloriously wrong as soon as next week's episode, considering it is called Cairo. I will be happy to be proven wrong. But at this point, I would say we don't need to dig into it too much. I think you guys can go out there and do some reading. There's a lot of fascinating reading about it online right now about what's in that issue. But of course, the issue seems to come in handy later on in the episode in a more physical, practical sense. So we'll get to that. But what else should we be taking away from this scene with Kevin Sr., with what's going on between the two Kevins here? Because he's trying to recruit Kevin Jr. for whatever cause is coming up that we still don't really have any illumination on.
Yeah, and we should, at this point, I think, also observe that we haven't really talked about the title of the episode, which is Solace for Tired Feet.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that ties in. There is a tie-in within the National Geographic issue itself. That phrase appears over a picture of a woman in a waterfall, and it's kind of like a travelogue type thing. So I don't know if Kevin's father is trying to say, look, you're having a really hard time. I know you're struggling with this. I'm struggling with it. They're not going to let you go. This is going to be something that you have to face. Just accept it. He tells him, you need to accept it. The voices are telling him, Kevin, he needs to accept it. And so I don't know if he's saying, like, you're really struggling because you're not unburdening yourself. You're not, like, really fully embracing that, something is going on, that you have a greater calling or a greater purpose. And throughout that scene, Kevin Garvey Sr. says, what I hear, what I say, it's the GD truth. Like, they don't tell me, what they don't want me to know, and they want whoever the voices are, they want Kevin Jr. to behave very, very specifically. I think he says at one point, the lucky ones, they're not needed, they get to stay sane, but we're in the fucking game now.
Yeah.
Pardon the F-bomb there. That whistle blew 3 years ago, and you cannot ignore it anymore. Your services are being requested, eyes open, wide awake. This is your invitation. This is your purpose. This is what you accept. Context is everything.
Right.
So I don't know what the point of this speech is. This is a crazy man. We can't forget that. This is a crazy man.
Yeah, so, unless he's not, and he sees something that we don't, and we're the crazy ones.
You're Lindelofing.
I am Lindelofing. Yes.
And I mean, it is truly epic Lindelofing, where we might actually look at the rantings of a crazy man and think the craziest man that we've seen so far in the show is the only sane one. And yet that's what this scene kind of feels like. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And I think that this is going to be the kind of thing that maybe plays better or plays worse, depending on what kind of answers we get out of this show. Whether Kevin Sr. is in the right or in the wrong, and I think that's something that's going to have to develop in these next 3 weeks with these final 3 episodes of season 1 and potentially of the series. HBO hasn't announced a renewal yet, so who knows what's coming up. But yeah, I think that you're on the money with this.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, if the central conflict of the show isn't why did this happen or what happened, but if the central conflict of the show is Kevin Garvey just crazy, or is he really tuned in to something that might be able to give him some illumination of some higher purpose, then we've seen that play out throughout the season already. If that's ultimately the question that the season asks, it has been well established, pretty well set up in almost every episode. The people that they've developed around Kevin, like Matt and like Nora, have been developed to support or detract from that central conflict. So, I think this stuff with Kevin's dad does exactly the same thing. We see, Kevin's dad telling him, don't take the meds, don't do it.
Right.
I wanted to keep you out of this. I tried to change their minds. They wouldn't stop. You said that. So I don't know if the guy's crazy or not. If I view the central conflict of the season as what's up with Kevin Garvey, I think that we're gonna find some really interesting material thereabouts in the next few episodes that really support that or detract from it. And I think that this scene so far it did a phenomenal job of really establishing that as the stakes for where we go going forward.
Yeah, and it gets really intense when, Kevin kind of throws it back at his dad. He's like, where did you go? You left me when I needed you, which I took to mean during the hard time that Kevin and his family went through during, the departure and during the loss of Lori from the family, with her leaving, with maybe Tommy going off on the run. Maybe there's something else. I don't think that there's too much to read into that just yet, but he's basically saying, I have commitments. I'm not leaving my family. I have responsibilities. I don't accept the magazine that you're telling me I need to accept. And Kevin Sr. just loses it, and he punches him. He punches him out. He says, it's inside you. You know this is real. This is making you a coward. And if you don't want what I have, then I will relieve you of it. And he's, don't just stay asleep. Don't wake up. Go back to sleep. And he gets carted back off to where he came from, to where he broke out of. And in that moment later on, we get Reverend Matt saying, of course I'll be here on Sunday, and Kevin Sr. hugging it out with his son, and even with his big display of fireworks in the bar, telling him, like, then don't join me for this cause, don't do what I want you to do. He pulls him in for a big hug and says, they're not going to let you off that easy, son. So the questions continue, Antonio. The questions continue about these two.
Yeah, and I thought I think that was really good. I think that I just have in my notes, Scott Glenn really knocked it out of the park with this episode. I thought it was a really great episode for this guy. You pointed out earlier, you have people like him sitting in the background of this series. They're going to really bring it when they get the chance.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So Kevin leaves. He leaves with Matt, and Matt starts to give him some Bible quotage, and Kevin just wants none of it. He says, F off.
He doesn't want to hear the story of Joseph, or I don't want to get into more musicals, but his Technicolor Dreamcoat.
I was Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat once.
Well, there you go. Now, so did you pick up on that was what the direct reference was to you?
No, I read up on that later. The full quote that Reverend Matt is trying to give is, my son, relate not thy vision to thy brothers, lest they concoct a plot against thee, for Satan is a clear enemy to humanity, which I think you could take as, don't tell anybody what your dad told you tonight, because they'll probably think you're nuts and lock you away. So hang on to that stuff. Don't confide it in anybody. But Kevin Garvey is more interested in having sex with Matt's sister than hearing what Matt has to say.
Yeah, well, no offense, I would be too. So.
Yeah, sure. So he goes over to Nora's house, and they do the deed, and it is sexy. It is very hot. This was a good scene.
This is a nominee for the sexiest sexy thing in the season of The Leftovers?
I think probably number one. I mean, unless, depending on how into eye choke you are.
Not very.
Not very would be my answer. Although, I don't know, between this and Nora and the mannequin last week, I'm still not sure. Still not positive.
Yeah. Well, and there's There's probably some other nominees that I haven't thought of. I mean, Patty looks pretty good in that white outfit, so I don't know.
Well, we know that she is a fan of making flowers.
Oh boy,
That is the thing.
I
But no,
didn't know that one.
this is a good scene. Obviously, two very attractive people being very attractive together. It is never a bad thing when HBO goes in this direction, or usually is not a bad thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. Not on this episode of Leftovers. I thought this was very good, and I also enjoyed Liv Tyler reporting back to Lori and being like, "Your ex is having sex with this chick," and Lori's just like, "Okay." Yeah, what? What about it?
She writes right on the dossier, like, so, like, BFD, what do you want me to do about it?
Yeah, there's nothing I
Like,
can do.
I made the choice to be where I am right now, and that choice directly led to that happening. So it's kind of on me if I am upset about this.
Yeah, I liked that. I thought that was good.
Yeah, like Lori did great with that. Her reaction was phenomenal to that. I also thought the pillow talk.
Yeah, the pillow talk was great.
Was really good. And I love that he says I think I'm crazy. He does exactly what Matt said not to do, which is doesn't tell somebody that he thinks he's crazy. And she kind of laughs it off and says, "Well, you've come to the right place." And so
oh man, I'm rooting for these two so hard.
Yeah, me too. So I thought it worked out pretty well.
I am Team Cora all the way.
Cora, not Nevin.
We could go Nevin if you want.
I like Cora.
Maybe we'll cross. We're going to cross the streams with Legend of Korra folks if we start saying Team Korra.
Yeah, we have to be careful.
Yeah, so Team Nevin, sure, absolutely. No, I love these two. They're great. I really want it to work out. I'm sure it won't because this is the Leftovers. So all happy things disappear. So I don't think it'll last forever. But I'm going to enjoy it while we've got it. And every scene with those two tonight or last night was just an absolute delight. And I'm really glad that the show was able to give us some happy moments with these characters, with any characters for that matter, because it very quickly goes dark again. Kevin goes home with a little pep in his step, as you do, and he sees that the National Geographic issue that was torn up in front of him by his father, it's now fully intact on the counter, and it's because Jill ordered a copy of it online. So here it is, and then he basically, has a meltdown in front of her, and she's like, "What the F, Dad? Why are you being a jerk?" And the dog is barking like a maniac outside, and then Kevin looks at the National Geographic that he's already thrown away, and does he take it out of the trash? Does he start to take it out of the trash? What's he going to do? Is he going to beat that dog with the National Geographic? I'm only half kidding. I kind of thought that's where it was going.
Yeah, I mean, and that he really... It's one of those things where, the fact that it turned out probably was a huge punch in the gut for him. And, at least he got an explanation for it. If he didn't have an explanation for it, I think he probably really would have lost it at that point. The fact that he had the explanation, she's sitting right there, pep in his step or not, the wind definitely goes out of his sails, but who knows what he's going to do with it.
He's going to do something.
Yep.
He's going to do something with it. So we finished the episode by going back to Gary, Indiana, and Tommy Garvey is just walking the street with his bloody, wounded hand, and he gets the phone call from Holy Wayne, but he closes it down really quickly, and he pulls a move out of his dad's playbook and just destroys the Holy Wayne phone. And I got to admit, I was pretty happy about that. I was happy to see him take a stand against Holy Wayne.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that it fit with learning that there was another Tommy out there, learning that there was another Christine out there, learning that what he suspected all along, which is that there's probably some just nothing, good about this purpose that he's been set upon, and that's a pretty good revelation. He's just had it with Wayne.
Yeah, that's it, and he's done, and he goes home, and Christine's not in her bed. There's a trail of blood. I'm totally expecting to see her dead in the next room, but instead she has given birth to her own baby without any assistance, totally on her own, and it's a girl.
It's a girl, and it's, I think, safe to say that that's Wayne's baby?
I think so.
Yeah.
Signs seem to suggest.
All signs point to yes.
Yes.
But, yeah, that's interesting. The baby's alive and well, so I don't know. If it starts making a bridge, Pontifex baby, I think we could be... we could see some interesting stuff, but I highly doubt that's going to happen.
It's interesting, though, because she was very confident that it was a boy, and it's not. It's a girl.
Yeah, well, she hasn't exactly had the best OBGYN treatments that are
No,
available,
not
so
really. But she's been going on all of this faith, and it doesn't seem to be being rewarded in multiple ways because we find, she doesn't know this. Christine doesn't know it yet, but Tommy knows that there are others like Christine, that there are other women who are pregnant with Wayne's children. So already that faith is busted. But her interest, her visions of, he's going to be the one, he's going to be the bridge, are now dashed because it's a girl.
yeah,
So
and
the faith is not being rewarded necessarily.
I know we're at the end of the episode. I want to say I'm trying very hard not to see that in that moment, in that storyline, as a metaphor for our entire experience with the leftovers. That we've been going on faith, that we've been kind of observing the show through a lens where we might have some expectations for things delivering, and ultimately what's being delivered is a baby, and something is being made that isn't exactly what we necessarily have expected or thought all along. So, in that regard, I don't have a problem being Tommy because I'm not going to be disappointed, with my focus on the series and with what I'm watching it for, because it took till the third episode where we really focused on Reverend Matt for me to look at the show from the character perspective instead of the mystery perspective, and to really appreciate what they were doing with these characters and what the characters were experiencing. But I think for other people, I think there's probably going to be some disappointment when some of these mysteries that they've had faith will be resolved aren't resolved. And so I think this is a very interesting kind of commentary on that, both on the previous experience with Damon Lindelof and the way we treat shows in general. I don't think it can be, necessarily evaluated without considering some portion of that. And I'm hoping that people won't be disappointed by this show in general. I think a lot of people that were already jumped off the bandwagon.
Yeah, in fact, I think that the people who've stuck with it are enjoying it more. I'm glad that I've stuck with it.
Me too.
I wasn't sure how I was feeling about it to start. I still don't think it's not going to be my number one show of all time when this season is done, unless they really wow me with these next 3 episodes. But I certainly like it a lot more than I did when we started out, and I think it's been on an upward trend since that 3rd episode, since the Reverend Matt episode, and I think that these last 3. Between Gladys and the guest, and now this past week's episode, really focusing on the whole Kevin Garvey situation between him and his father and his relationship with Nora. Putting the holy Wayne of it all aside, I thought that these 3 episodes were the strongest ones yet. And if that's the trend that we're on, then we're on an upswing. So I'm really hoping, knock on wood, that it stays that way, because I think that the show is really entertaining right now and doing some really good character work and some kind of finding its voice in a way. But I will reserve judgment until the season is over, and I will also say that it's an uphill battle to get me to care about this Holy Wayne stuff. Even it's hard. It's not great.
Yeah, some guy named Rob Sesternino in the chat room said, "Breaking: The Leftovers is Josh Wigler's #1 show of all time."
False information being spread by Sesternino.
So,
alert, Mole Patrol.
I'm I'm with you. I hope the people that we certainly appreciate each and every one of you who are listening to us either live or in the archives, tweeting with us, interacting with us about this show. Hopefully, you guys are on the same plane we are with this. I'm interested, Josh. One final thing here. We covered this last week. You mentioned some kind of I wouldn't say insider info, but some kind of like backstory info for the way the show was being written. That there was a pause button pressed during the process of making the show, and I believe last episode was the last one that they made before they pressed the pause button. Is that right?
That is what I recall reading, is that they stopped production on the season after episode 6 for about 2 weeks just to kind of get their bearings straight, to work some things out in the writer's room before they came back. So I think that is definitely what happened in between. I believe it was the guest last week, the Nora Durst episode, and this week, and that's certainly why the Leftovers premiere date was pushed back a couple weeks. It was supposed to premiere earlier than it did, and it ended up premiering, I think, a few weeks, maybe 2 weeks after the Game of Thrones finale, and I think it was supposed to be paired with the Game of Thrones finale. So, I think that they stopped down to do some reflection. And I hope, that was something that you and I had talked about, was hopefully they're not going to deviate away from what they've been doing in the 2 episodes before, and hopefully it was going to be more like, oh, wait, we're doing this right, so how do we continue doing it right? And if this most recent episode was any indication, I think that they're continuing to do it well.
Yeah, I definitely was tracking that as I watched the episode, and it did feel a little different. I mean, it was spring, and I think there was some conscious effort to do some brighter lighting. There were a lot of
some
blue,
spring cleaning, so to
a little
speak.
spring cleaning. Yes, some pipes were cleaned. Everything, some gutters were cleaned.
In the Durst house,
so,
especially.
well, I don't want to talk about like, specific ones. We know Kevin was cleaning a gutter, and so some spring cleaning occurred. I think some efforts were made to really change the feel a little bit, but I don't think they'd lost sight of what we were buying into with regard to the show and the characters and where they were headed. So, keeping that in mind, that they had press pause before this episode was written or was really finalized, or the story was broken, or whatever it was, I thought this was a really good sign that they probably collected their bearings in a way that didn't really drastically change or screw things up. And I'm wondering, well, if we'll see more of that next week. Maybe episode 7 was already mostly in the can. And episode 8 is going to be the one that reflects this. I hope it's not going to be significantly different, but I guess we'll just have to stay tuned and find out.
Well, we will find out next week when we are back talking about the next episode of The Leftovers when we go to Cairo, whether that is in New York or otherwise. I suppose we will find out. We're going to be doing some more fun stuff here on post-show recaps this week. Wednesday at, I believe that's going to be 4 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be with Terry Schwartz doing another round of the Game of Thrones Book Club. That is the podcast for Game of Thrones viewers who have read the books and know the spoilers and are unafraid of spoilers otherwise. But as always, do not approach unless you are hip to the books, because we're going to ruin some stuff for you. But Terry and I are going to talk about what we saw at Comic-Con last month, and there have been some other developments along the way, including, unfortunately, a cast member who passed away shooting Game of Thrones, shooting the 5th season. Just announced today that one of the actors, a new actor, someone who has not been on the show yet, but plays a character that Terry and I can talk about. So that's very upsetting. We will be talking about that. We will be talking about some other stuff floating around the Game of Thrones world. Antonio and I are going to be back later in the week with Joe Garfine and AJ Mass talking about Lost for our Lost podcast. We're going to be running down the 23 best deaths of Lost. That should be pretty interesting as well. Could be a mixture of fun and depression, kind of like this week's Leftovers. So that'll be Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Then Antonio and I will be back talking about The Strain on Sunday night at 11:15 p.m. Eastern, talking about that nonsense vampire show where nobody has genitalia, and we are always on butt patrol because it seems like nobody has butts anymore on that show.
There are literally front butts in that show.
Yeah, front butts. Lots of front butts on The Strain. It's definitely true.
Cloacas everywhere.
Yeah, and then we'll be back talking about The Leftovers hopefully Monday afternoon next week. We'll give you an official time if you pay attention to the Post Show Recaps Twitter feed. That's at Post Show Recaps. You can follow Antonio. He's at AC Mazzaro, 2 Z's, 1 R. I'm at Round Howard, like Ron Howard but rounder. If you've made it this far, Antonio, is there a hashtag we should be giving these jokers who've made it this far? An hour and 40 minutes this podcast. That's wild. You guys are tough customers listening to this.
I'd hate to hashtag Butt Patrol. We could end up in some trouble with that one.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, so I don't know. What do you think?
Let's go with I don't know.
Hashtag I don't know? No, that's no good.
No, I don't think that's very good.
I think we're in trouble.
How about hashtag Team Nevin? That's Nevin. If you are enjoying Nora and Kevin as much as we are, give us some hashtag Team Nevin action. Otherwise, we're going to talk to you guys next week about The Leftovers. Hope you guys enjoyed this week. We had a really good time, and we will talk to you all soon. Take care, everybody.